Hello there. Uh, my name is Tatia K, and I'm about to conduct an interview with a music professional I admire. This interview is basically a project in behalf of Berklee College of Music. More specifically, this is an interview designed for developing the artistry course. It's a wonderful course that explores the sense and essence of aesthetics, art, creativity. It explores artistic habits, creative DNA. We happen to talk to a lot of music professionals, and it's just interesting to hear about their musical experiences, endeavors. So I'm very happy today that my guest is Thomas Feiner, a wonderful musician and a singer with an incredible voice, singer-songwriter and visual artist. So, hello, Thomas.
Hello, Tatia.
How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you, thank you.
So how
Thank you
is
for the introduction, but I would hesitate to call myself a music professional still. It's something
come
I'm
on.
still I still see myself as an aspiring artist, and yeah,
Aren't
I
it we
would,
all? Aren't it
yes,
we all? And I think the profession of an artist basically means in itself that it's a constant learning process.
yes, indeed.
Anyway, would you please introduce yourself? Just tell us a little bit about yourself, whatever you want, other people and other artists to know, just briefly.
Yeah, okay. So Thomas Feiner, I'm based in Gothenburg, Sweden, on the Swedish west coast. I've been pursuing music since fairly early age. Musical mother. Started playing the recorder in the public music school in Sweden, and then progressed to trumpet. Played in youth symphony orchestra, youth brass band. Formed a band with my brother when we were young still, and then moved on to various band constellations, and I've been pursuing sort of like a solo career on the side as well. But that's part of what I do. But I mean, to be honest, I've made most of my living from being an illustrator and 3D
Oh,
artist, and doing imagery,
that's
commercial
that's so
illustration.
interesting to know. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. That's why you call yourself a visual artist. I would like you to talk more about that because it's incredibly interesting to me. But before we go there, I would like you to define, if it's possible, of course. It's a pretty hard question if you think about it. Define your art or your work. What is it? Because you can approach it in a very pragmatic way, or you can just approach it in a very philosophical way, whatever you feel like. And also, if you could just define art in general, what is art for you?
Yeah, that's the eternal question, isn't it? Because it's like saying what are letters? You know, letters
Exactly.
can form anything, and art can form and perform anything, and ask any type of question, or try to give any type of answer. Um, Art is a comment. Art is just figments of the imagination. Art is experimentation. I think it's part of the human endeavor that no stone shall be unturned. We try to learn who we are ourselves, and we try to make combinations of various expressions. We listen and learn from others, and we watch and learn from others, and try to make variations from that. I think it's interesting, but it's a very philosophical question,
It
uh,
is.
and it's sort of like and it's an ongoing debate, isn't it? That what is art for some people may not come across as art for others, and uh, it's a minefield in a way to go in to try to define art. So it's a very broad concept.
I absolutely agree with you.
But for me, I mean, art is part of life. Art is I guess for me, my personal definition is sort of creativity and exploration.
Exploration. But maybe we should approach this question from a perspective of purpose. Like, what is the purpose of art? Like, what does it exactly do for
Yeah.
you in your life? What does art represent, or how does it help you to live?
Yeah. I think art is a concept that arises from the meeting where you sort of you create something. If you create something for yourself in your own chamber and it doesn't leave your chamber, is it art then? I mean, I guess in a sense it is, but I think there has to be some sort of
Exposure.
sender receiver kind
Yeah.
of situation in order to have a discussion about art. And
Right. That's a
um,
very interesting subject that you just raised, because it would definitely take us to an essence of accomplishment, or what accomplishment means in an artist's life, right? And that's a very interesting question to me, and I was excited to ask you this because in a modern world, accomplishment could mean so many different things. But from what I see for many people, when I talk to them, it occurs to me that it means success, it means the popularity,
yeah.
and I'm not sure about that. So what do
Mm.
you think? What is accomplishment, or what is accomplishment in an artist's life?
Well, this is something I'm struggling to define myself because I to be honest I feel fairly unaccomplished in terms of um, you know, amount of listeners, amount of income, whatever.
Right,
Then
right.
again, I do have a certain rather dedicated following somehow. That the few who found my music um, seem dedicated and very honest, and I guess for some musicians and artists, this is more valuable somehow, that the listeners that you have are sincere somehow.
I
I
see.
mean, you might be a DJ and you might have like 500,000 followers, and they don't care. You know, they follow you because it's fun somehow. But you put out something and they listen to it and they don't care. And on the other hand, you might have a very small following, but you're sort of like a cult artist where the listeners come back sometimes and say that this changed my life somehow, which is on a whole different uh, level philosophically, but not in terms of financial or worldly success, if you will. It's
Right.
something different.
Well,
So I guess in a sense, if we go back to that question, how do you feel accomplished? Yeah, it's if you feel that what you put out makes a difference somehow, I guess that would be a sense of accomplishment.
sense of accomplishment. I couldn't agree more with you. And I can tell you personally, as you're one of the biggest fans of yours. Well, I'm not a fan of of the word fan, but if I have to say that, I have a big respect for somebody's work, then it would be that definition for me. And I have a lot of respect for what you do, and your music has definitely inspired me. And by inspiring, I mean that it has um, opened up my imagination in so many different ways, and I have thought about different sounds and different possibilities in music world, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, definitely accomplishment is a very subjective thing, I think, and it definitely is not defined by the number of followers. Trust me. I would like to ask you a question about educational experience, and it's not, I don't want you to just go into the biography, like what it was and how many years. What I'm asking about is that, how do you think, is academic knowledge important? Did it do you think it's important for an artist to have some type of formal education, let's say formal musical education, and how important it is for an artist who has to create? Because to be honest with you, I know so many amazing scholars, so many people with tons of musical education, like they're like mathematicians, when it comes to music, yet they can't even write 2 bars of music on their own. So
Yeah.
what is it, this creativity about that? Some musicians have it abundantly, some of them don't, some of them struggle to write something.
Yeah.
So I always question this thing. Is really knowledge important, or maybe it's even bad? Like maybe it kind of throws you off the rails sometimes when you need to develop something on your own. So what do
Yeah.
you think?
Well, I tend to be sort of like a poster boy for the non-academic approach. There is a female vocalist and composer here in Sweden, Stina Nordenstam, and I remember I read an interview with her. She graduated through musical university, and she's really she really knows her stuff, academically speaking. But she said that she spent years trying to unlearn what she had learned in the university, in order to find her own voice somehow. And I can sympathize with that. I've sometimes, I'm older now, but when I was younger, I sort of toyed with the idea: should I or shouldn't I, go into academia? And I came to the conclusion, for my part, that it's more valuable for me just to experiment by myself. So I'm in a general sense, I'm a very much DIY person, and learning by doing has always been my method. So but that said, I'm not saying do this or do that, because there have been occasions where I would have benefited much from
Much.
some sort of music theory knowledge, and being able to, for instance, like notation and writing scores.
Yeah.
That would have made things a lot easier for me. I tend to do everything by ear, and whatever comes, it comes. But if I want to communicate with other musicians, I'm at a loss. This is I would have to have some intermediary who sort of interprets my ideas and then transforms them into some sort of musical score, or a language that other musicians can understand. And
Right. Nevertheless, it has not prevented you from writing your own stuff.
no,
Right.
no.
You've always been able to communicate whatever you
And I
think.
think, yeah, I guess that my approach has been, I don't want to unveil the mystery of what is happening on the keyboard, or in a musical setting. I don't want to start thinking about chords and progressions, and I just want to be able to listen and be absolutely at a loss in terms of, what are these progressions called, or whatever. Oh, it's very banal, because this is so basic that if you know that it's basic, you might, out of some kind of idea that I don't want to be too simplistic. I need to make it more complicated, and I don't want to be that person. I just want to be uh, alone and at a loss with
That's a loss.
music. So, yeah.
Well, it makes me so happy to hear that, because I've met so many musicians, and when we have a conversation or we'll listen to a piece together, I see them analyzing bar by bar, literally,
Yeah.
like they just follow it. They know the harmony, they know the chord, they know what, all the changes happening in there, and they find a lot of joy and pleasure
Yeah.
in revealing this whole, organics or mechanics, if you want to say.
Mm.
And to me, it's killing the piece. I don't want to know. Well, if I'm studying a piece, that's different. Let's say if I have a task to analyze a certain piece, right, because I need it for something. And then, of course, I have an ability to listen to it and kind of differentiate the instruments and just hear everything separately. But if I'm listening to something I really enjoy and I really
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
I I absolutely don't want to know. Actually, knowing it just kills the whole mystery. Everything that I like about music, it's lost because it becomes
Yes.
very tangible. It
Mhm.
becomes something that I could possibly do, and that scares me because
Yeah.
if I can do it, then it's not unique anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That said, I mean, this is from a composer's view, of course. If you're a musician, if you're let's say, I saw a documentary about a tabla player playing with a sitar player the other day,
Mhm.
and they've been studying. Both of them have been studying for most of their lives, and they know the patterns of the music, so they are able to, on the fly, communicate and create something, which is essentially. Um, yeah, they create magic in the moment because they know this language. They have they have a unified knowledge and know how things should develop from an intuitive point of view, because they've
Intuitive.
studied so much. And I find that interesting and a little bit enviable. But for me, I'm not a session player, so I'm not an instrumentalist. But if you're an instrumentalist, I guess this is essential. You have to know these things.
You're absolutely right. Yes, many cover musicians, so-called cover musicians or session musicians, people who perform at the gigs, including myself. I've done a lot of cover gigs in my life. Not that I enjoy, but well, you do it because you have to sometimes. So yes, you definitely need to know the structure of the song, and but it absolutely does not enhance your personal songwriting journey. Like
Mhm.
absolutely zero connection. Just
No.
because I know so many chords or so many scales, or just because I know music theory and harmony, it does not influence the music the way I write it. Because I write, it's like a flow of emotions in a moment.
Mhm.
And so I always feel like any type of criticism regarding your personal stuff, like your music, is obsolete. Like even if I tell you, let's say, well, yeah, I like this song, but it would be nice if you used a trumpet instead of a violin, or I don't know, piano instead of a cello. What
Mhm.
difference it makes if this is how you hear it? This is how you want it to be. I'm sure
Yeah.
you would consider cello if you wanted to, or a different instrument. So
Mhm.
in other words, I always find it idiotic to just there's nobody can have a say in your music. You can only share it with others, and if somebody likes it, that's fantastic. But that feels like a compliment. But I never understand when people are seeking for an opinion of other people, like other musicians or other professionals' opinion on their own stuff. Like, who is going to tell me how my song was supposed to be, or what would made it better?
Yeah.
It, it's just what I feel, right?
Mhm.
And you can't tell me to feel different things. So, yep, I agree with you on so many aspects of this, and I'm glad that you mentioned that the educational factor is really very subjective and not important here,
Yeah.
especially in songwriting.
Well,
Um,
but I guess it might be different for another person, but for my
for
part,
another person,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. Another question that I wanted to ask you is about other forms of art. Um, I don't even know if your music, or how do you view your music? I know, being a visual artist, how do you see? Is there any connection between
Yeah.
your music, your songs, whatever you create, or even how you sing?
Absolutely, yes. Because
Is there
a lot of the process is internal imagery somehow, and
imagery?
it's like
Okay,
a almost like a form of synesthesia, where impressions blend somehow. So in for me, music and patterns will trigger certain inner imagery, if you will, and I tend to be somewhat, you know, cinematic in my music writing
I
somehow.
know,
Yeah.
I know.
So so yeah,
I
it's
love that about your music, and I know that you're the author of all those videos, right? For your songs, you are the one making those.
with the videos in certain certain videos I've done a couple of them myself, and in other cases it's been like a borrowed material that I edited together and treated together to get the kind of expression I want. But yeah, a few of them have been like computer graphics experiments, and yeah.
Now, I have this question for you. I always ask this to singers, especially singers, because we have to pronounce words. So the verbal language and its function in music. Uh, how important lyric is to you? Is
Yeah.
is lyric important? Because let's think about it. Song is just another form of music, right? That there is the
Yes.
whole language of sounds that can speak to everyone.
Mm.
It doesn't even need interpreter, right? It's just understandable or comprehensible for everyone.
Yes.
How important it is, and do you when you write your lyrics, um, how do you write them? Is it just an emotional, you have an idea first and then you have a music, or you have the lyrics first, or it's simultaneously like the lyrics and melody come all together?
In my case, they don't. It usually always starts with the music.
Me
I
too.
can't even think, yeah, I can't even think of an instance where,
Lyric was first.
no, to be quite honest, there have been instances where the lyrics would appear alongside with the music somehow, like something comes up in my head, and I've worked from that point. But no, I'm very ambivalent about the whole lyric thing, because for me, music is like a right side of the brain thing. It has
Yeah,
to do with intuition and spirituality, and whereas if you put things into words, that then you sort of connect the other brain half and start reasoning, and but then again, there are poets and who are absolutely sort of um intuitive in the way that they write words as well, and unfortunately I don't have that connection so much to words. So it's always a struggle for me personally to find the right um words for my music. I think, to be honest, my output would have been uh more productive if I hadn't felt the need to find the right words. So
to
it's
find
a very long process to arrive at a finished lyric. Um, so I'm really attracted to the idea of just using the voice as an instrument, but vocalizing sounds rather than actual words, sounds that could mean whatever. I think it's called glossolalia, where you just pretend
it.
words, more or less. But I'm a bit shy to experiment that with in that vein with my ordinary voice. But I have a sort of project on the side, which is me exploring glossolalia, but with a more female voice somehow. And
Yeah,
this Ada Moreau project, which is sort of like ambient, more an ambient type of music where I play with just intuitive singing, and I find that very interesting. To be honest, it's there are these singers, female singers, Lisa Gerard from Dead Can Dance, and also Elizabeth Fraser from Cocteau Twins, who've been doing this for
gotcha.
years, and
Yeah,
these are just made up languages, sort of, that they sing, and it's beautiful. And but I can't, for the life of me, I can't figure out how do they actually memorize these lines. Um, do they write them down when they perform them? Because I saw Lisa Gerard and Brendan Perry performing in Paris
really.
about a year ago, and she does actually sing what she sings on the albums. So
Oh wow. Maybe she spontaneously records them, but then she learns them,
yeah, maybe,
later.
yeah.
That's very interesting. Speaking of those artists, do you have any current or past artists that you feel like influenced your work more than
Yeah, I mean
anybody?
they tend to come and go. I don't have like a fixed
Fixed.
star on
Yeah.
my musical heaven, and but those that I mentioned have been huge influences for me because when I was younger, when you're in a very impressionable age, and whatever you pick up at that time, it usually sticks somehow and remains influential for the rest of your life. And in my case, it was yeah, Dead Can Dance and also Cocteau Twins, um, and also David Sylvian. There was in particular one album that I
Oh,
listened to.
wonderful artist,
Yeah.
David Sylvian. Do you listen to classical music at all?
Yeah, it tends to be more perhaps in the neoclassical sense, like
Mhm.
Max Richter and Johann Johansson. Uh, and also, I just recently discovered Nick Berch, which is not, it's more like he's sort of borderline jazz, and but a very particular, very interesting pianist. Um,
Do you think that jazz is music for musicians?
it's a stereotype thing, isn't it? Musicians.
Do you see a snobbish element in jazz, or have you met snobbish jazz musicians? I'm sure you have at least one.
Yeah. Well, I've never had a very strong. I've never been particularly attracted to jazz, and there are certain types of uh, music that just didn't appeal to me very much, like certain types of rhythm and what do you call it, modern rhythm and blues, or if that's even a term, um, kind of electronic, um, oh, soul music. I
Soul
don't.
music, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, but about jazz, yeah, it's I mean, I've come across things that are immensely fascinating. But I mean, in a general level, I'm not a particularly avid music listener, to be honest. Uh I mainly listen to music when I'm in the gym, and then I only listen to drum and bass. So I'm a very
Another thing that I wanted to ask you about, this is also very important to me. So this is this question: how does your art relate to politics or social, I would say social topics, or maybe I
mm,
should say social concerns.
yeah.
And this is an important question for me. Why? Because I know many musicians or many bands or many songs, they're basically reflecting some what's happening in the world, right? The current situation, the war, or it's against the violence or it's against this political party. So they turn to be some kind of political statements in many cases, or I don't know, they just illustrate some social issues, which are very important issues. I'm not saying that they're not important, but to me, I think this fields have to be separated.
Mhm.
I don't need music for politics. Okay. But, well, maybe it's just for me subjectively. I'm a very apolitical person. I have zero interest in any political discussions. I'm not a political hobbyist, if you want to say so. So, but I always feel like, and I'm with Tarkovsky in this, Tarkovsky, who thought that art has, if art doesn't have the element of aesthetics and beauty, like if it does not enhance spirituality, if it doesn't serve taking you away from this everyday life and from this pragmatic, everyday existence, then I don't know what's special about art. What do you think personally? And if you've used your art or your music for any
Yeah.
political or social ideas?
Yes. This is a super interesting topic, to be honest. I've also always felt that music belongs to something higher than what we do down here somehow, and it's a question about elevation, as you say. It's something that lifts us up and alleviates our lives. So I'm quite attracted to that idea in general. That said, I mean, my lyrics, to the degree I write them, they have been, let's say, infused by or inspired by let's say, philosophical thoughts about certain things. I mean, the human
Right.
condition and what is happening in the world. It seeps into the lyrics somehow. I would not say it seeps into the music per se. I mean, music can be many things. I mean, it's not always about elevation. Sometimes it's about, motion, rhythm, and yeah, getting into
Vibe, some kind of vibe.
vibe, some sort of
Yeah.
groove. So it's not all about pure essence and the higher spirit, but again, I mean, music, as with letters and as with art, it can be anything. You can formulate anything with those tools. And but as on a general level, yes, I do feel that music belongs more to the intuitive, sort of right brain field. Whereas if I wanted to write very outspoken political texts,
Mm.
I could see myself doing that, to be honest. It's like, I'm not the right person. I mean, I'm sure there are many really great, like, protest singers, and I highly respect what they do. But for me and my personal taste, it's like, if you go and become too immersed in sort of mundalities,
Yes. Yeah.
uh, then it's not for me,
Yeah.
to
Um,
do that. I don't feel at home in that sense. And not to be I don't want to be too outspoken. I want things to be uh, inter
Preserved.
interpretable and slightly open-ended. Because the music for me is like, you're a sender and there is a receiver, and together is where the music and the connection is made by, the my stuff can be interpreted in many different ways, and I
Yeah.
want it to be like that, because it's sort of like a co-creation process. A listener meets composer, and the interesting things happen in that meeting. I'm always fascinated to hear how listeners perceive um, a certain song of mine, and it can be vastly different impressions from the
Yeah.
same material.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't you enjoy hearing opinion from people with zero musical education more than musical professionals?
I
I,
don't
I've
mind.
always
Anyone who has an opinion can say what they will. I will listen equally to all of them. Um, yeah.
I usually like to hear what people have to say about my songs, people who really don't know music, like that they have no musical literacy.
Yeah.
Why? Because whatever they tell me, it comes from just a pure emotional impression, like whatever impression it made on them, what they
Yeah.
felt.
Mhm.
They're not telling you what they think, they tell you what they feel.
Yes.
And I think that's more important to me than hearing some educated musician giving me their eloquently put
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
opinion about how it
yeah. Okay, because
what's
that's
going
why I'm always somewhat skeptical when I read music reviews, where you
exactly.
pick apart music from a purely left brain perspective. For
Yeah,
me, it's like you're using the wrong part of the body to
wrong
to
part.
to approach the music. It should be the other side.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Exactly. And I believe that there's certain art forms that are maybe more suitable and maybe better designed to address some social issues in the society. Like we know wonderful um, film directors like Fellini, who had a lot
Yeah.
of social concerns in his movies, right? La Strada and all of that. But I think, and there's Tarkovsky, who was a poet of the cinema, who's basically believed in poetry. So he was trying to convey poetic language to
Mm.
cinema. And this is my take on music. And I think this is what I see in your songs and why I like you. If you're interested in hearing my
Yeah,
opinion,
sure, absolutely.
that's why there's a huge element of poetry in your voice and the way you sing and in your songs. And I find it, and there's incredible amount of mystery in it, which I would never be able to exhaust, which is also very appealing. And you can definitely tell, and I didn't know this, but I could tell that you're not coming from academia. Like there's no academia there. There's something there that seems so beautifully odd. And I think this oddity, this strangeness is what appeals to me in music. What
Mm.
makes someone unique. And you know, along this course, developing artistry, which is basically a wonderful program designed by Berklee College of Music, I have to give them the credit. We had to explore so many music professional interviews. And you know what they all say? Like they say it in different words, of course, and they express it in a different ways. But most of them are basically saying the same thing, which is, if you have to sum it up in a couple of sentences, it would uh, be true to yourself, be honest, know who you are, and basically to be truthful in your art. And then many students had questions about this topic. They found this very challenging. And I've met a lot of musicians who struggle to be truthful in their music. And they often question, what is this? Or how can I be honest in my music? How do I stop being somebody else?
Yeah.
How do I stop? How do I free myself from all these influences that I have? Because when I
Yeah.
play, and I catch myself on this personally, when I try to, when some ideas are coming to my head and it kind of leads me towards something, and then I catch myself in a moment and in a lie. Literally, I'm lying to myself.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make an impression,
Yes.
and that's where I catch myself on a lie. And I'm like, no, now you're trying to impress.
Yeah.
Don't go there. Just go back to where you started. And so I
Yeah.
think it's a very, very difficult process. And what do you think? Because I feel like you are truthful in your music, but what do you think? Have you struggled with this too when you're trying to, just free yourself from all of those stereotypical
Yeah,
impression?
and yes, absolutely. I totally resonate with this discussion, and it, it is a very ongoing struggle for me as well. I put out something that rings very true in the moment, and then you listen to it a few days later, and nah, this
It's
is
pretentious.
yeah,
It's
it's
pretentious.
pretentious, or I'm trying something. I'm trying to be something, and I mean, to be honest, sometimes I can allow myself to go in certain directions because I feel it's worth exploring anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but you're sort of on a diplomatic mission sometimes when you create music. Yeah, I mean, ultimately you would love to be pure essence somehow, whatever that is, and to some kind of undiluted expression of yourself. But these are very difficult things to achieve. I mean, I don't know what it takes, a life in meditation or abstinence from all uh, audiovisual stimuli for a couple of years before you can attain something like this. I don't know what it takes, to be honest, or if you can um, do anything other than just trying and trying and trying again to find that which somehow resonates on a soul level. With what you're hearing and what you feel is inside you somehow, and um, it's a hugely interesting topic because I mean, anyone who creates art is bound to be influenced by his or her surroundings,
Something. Yeah.
the time we live in, um, and also the all these impressions coming from all directions. You don't really know because it seeps into your subconscious and then it floats up, and you're bound to be uh, polluted in a way. That there is, I don't think there is a way to avoid that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's
But
probably hard
still,
to isolate yourself. It's
yeah,
hard to isolate yourself from all this incoming information. There's just too much coming in.
yes, yes.
Um,
But I mean, let's say you have a taste at least. So try to sort of zoom in on your taste and try to be true to that somehow. This is what we are left with, I think.
I think this is a very philosophical thing that every person has to face, and I think it's going to happen automatically in your music. If you're going to achieve that level of
Mm.
perception in your own life, if you're
Yeah,
going to achieve the position where you're free from any desire to impress, and you feel like you know yourself, you're true to yourself, to your identity, and it's in harmony
mm,
with everything surrounding, then I think it's just going to be an automatic thing, that it's just going to come out the way you want it in the music,
yeah,
because you're going to be ready for it.
yeah.
Um,
But I mean, at the same time, life happens, and you are at different points in your through your life. You are at different places, and sometimes it's time for play. You know, you can create music in a very playful way, just to explore rhythms and expressions or whatever. And sometimes, if you're in that sort of general mood, you might actually reach for something that is more um, spiritual in a way, and because we are, I mean, we are not unified creatures. We are composed of very various personalities who
Very
uh,
complex, and we
we
change
are
all the
complex.
time.
We are many selves in a way, and sometimes there is one self who wants to explore that, and another time there is another self who wants to explore that. So I don't think we have to be super serious all the time. Sometimes music is just play as well. So I think that's important to keep in mind. It's supposed to enhance life, and it should be fun also.
Yes, you're absolutely right. If you could give one advice to other musicians or aspiring musicians and artists, what would that be? Just
Yeah,
one advice.
I was thinking about that, and from a practical on a practical level, I mean, just learn the tools um, if you can. I mean, the technicalities of what it is that you do. If you're an artist, learn to a degree at least how to record and use whatever programs you can find or you
Mhm.
feel comfortable with, because there is always, I think there's always a danger on relying too much on other people, and having to wait around in order for things to happen. Um,
Yeah.
uh, Try to be as self-sufficient as possible on a practical level. Um, but also, I think given what is happening in the world with the output, and I mean, in a way, it's really encouraging to see that so much music and stuff is being produced.
Mhm.
But let's face it, these are these are magnitudes these days. I mean, what is Spotify like? A couple of years ago, they received like 40,000 songs per day. I think that number now is more than 100,000 songs per day. So it's a very massive um, cloud of stuff being produced. So be prepared as an artist or aspiring musicians. Be prepared for a wall of indifference in a way, and try to understand that you're doing this mostly for yourself, and don't be too discouraged by the lack of interest that that
It
your
comes from- yeah.
work
Actually,
might
that could sometimes be a good sign.
yeah, yes, in a way.
I think Tarkovsky said about one of his movies when he said that, well, or was it Tarkovsky or it was Woody Allen who said that if people are gonna like my art, then I'll be disappointed or something like that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to talk to you. This was actually my first interview with
Are you
anyone
doing more?
except with myself when I was little in the mirror.
Uh-huh.
I
Right.
think we have all done that at least once.
Mhm.
But it was very exciting, and I think I'm very happy that it happens to be you, Thomas. That you were my first choice when I was asked about this interview, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. It was wonderful to get to know you closer, and I'm happier to know that our musical ideas are somewhat similar. And thank you so much.
It's been a
And I
pleasure.
wish you all the best and good luck with your music.
Thank you so much, Tatia. Take care.
Thank you, Thomas. Take